Well, welcome. I think we could probably go ahead and get started, and a few more folks will join us. But just to be conscious of everyone's time tonight, I will start. I am recording this event. I'll say something about that in a moment. But my name is Tom King. I am a former professor at Brandeis University in the English department at Brandeis, where I taught a number of things, including a course on climate justice called Performing Climate Justice. And in that course, or through that course, I've first heard about climate change theater action and got to meet our guest tonight, Chantal Bilodeau, who I will introduce shortly. But this is an event called Theater as Climate Action, and I'm really delighted you're here. Let me welcome you to this conversation with Chantal Bilodeau, the founding artistic director of Arts and Climate Initiative and co-founder of Climate Change Theater Action. I'll say more about Chantal in a moment, but just to introduce the event, we're here to consider today the role of theater and performance more broadly in fostering climate awareness and climate action, building social cohesion and resilience, and facilitating alliances across our often competing interests as activists. We're also going to give a preview of our local production. I'm coming from Somerville, Massachusetts, in the US. Our local production of climate change theater action plays, which we have called Now Is Still Here, Climate Change, Climate Change Theater Action 2026. And this will be an event performed at in Somerville, Massachusetts, at a quarter-acre public space, Somerville operated, Somerville owned, volunteer operated space called the Somerville Community Growing Center. The Growing Center, as you'll hear more about as we go on, has a double mission, both of growing biodiversity by growing native plants and educating about ecotypic plants and ecological gardening, and also doing pollinator and other biodiversity monitoring, and a corollary mission of growing community, and particularly creating a more just and inclusive community of all of the populations that share a space in Somerville, Massachusetts. So it's a wonderful outdoor space to be performing our production in. And we have a little blurb about our show. Now Is Still Here, but I'll read what's the third paragraph on your screen, because it's a brief explanation of Climate Change Theater Action, which is a festival of short plays commissioned from playwrights around the world by our guest tonight, Chantal Bilodeau, and inviting audience members to take action. And Climate Change Theater Action Productions, in our production Now Is Still Here in particular, asks, what future relations to our built and natural environments can we imagine and then begin building together? How can practices of care for all living beings help us imagine and build justice, inclusion, and belonging in our communities? Um, in the reservation confirmation that you got when you registered for the Zoom link, you have information about our production. But just to remind folks, and if you're in the Somerville, Massachusetts, or Boston, Cambridge areas, please come see one of our performances on Friday the 29th, Saturday the 30th of May at 6:30 p.m., or Sunday the 31st of May at 4 p.m., with some rain dates in June. And since today was a record-breaking heat day here in the Boston area, along with a sudden unannounced rainstorm or thunderstorm, the rain dates always are something to keep in mind. Tickets are free. This is a production that is partially funded by the Somerville Arts Council. And through that, we've been able to present this free of charge, but reservations are recommended through Eventbrite. You can scan on the screen or use the ticket link that was sent in your confirmation email. As I mentioned earlier, today's event is being recorded and will be posted on the Somerville Community Growing Center's YouTube channel. Although I'll be spotlighting the different speakers while we're in conversation sections of today's event, we hope that you'll keep your cameras on so that we can all be in conversation with each other. We understand, though, if you choose not to do so because we're recording. We'll have time for Q&A at the end of our presentation, but you can also send questions via the Q&A button, which will either be at the bottom of your screen or if you click on the More, there's a More Options menu, you should be able to find it there. I want to um, also note that as a production at the Somerville Community Growing Center, I've would like to share I'm where I've been a longstanding volunteer for about 6, 7 years now. And so as a volunteer there, I'd like to share our land acknowledgement. So the Somerville Community Growing Center would like to acknowledge the Massachusetts tribe, the tribe of indigenous peoples from whom the colony, province, and Commonwealth of Massachusetts have taken their name. We would like to pay our respect to the ancestral bloodline of the Massachusetts tribe and their descendants who still inhabit historical Massachusetts tribe territories to this day. And I'd like to add to that an acknowledgement, sort of a thematic acknowledgement for our production. Now is still here. We acknowledge that our current climate emergency cannot be addressed without simultaneously addressing the racial, gender, and economic oppressions that have enabled an ever-expanding extractive capitalism, environmental degradation of indigenous lands and vulnerable communities, and health disparities in so-called gateway or environmental justice communities where fossil fuel infrastructure has been historically located. And we've taken and putting the production together, I'm directing the show. I took a lot of inspiration from an essay by Hop Hopkins, who was formerly the director of organizational transformation for the Sierra Club. And This is an essay from 2020. He was writing at a time when very few Black, Indigenous people of color people were represented in, or indeed trusted, the predominantly white-led environmental and climate movements. And in this essay, he offers a diagnosis of why we can't think about solving the climate crisis without ending white supremacy. Um, he gives the quote that we'll never stop climate change without ending white supremacy. And and secondly, you can't have climate change without sacrifice zones, and you can't have sacrifice zones without disposable people, and you can't have disposable people without racism. We're in this global environmental mess because we've declared parts of our planet to be disposable. The watersheds where we frack the earth to extract gas are considered disposable. The neighborhoods near where Hop Hopkins, live in Los Angeles, surrounded by urban oil fields, are considered disposable. The very atmosphere is considered disposable. And I'll try to pop a link into this in the chat shortly. But just to say that for us, this article, for us at the company of Now is Still Here, this article resonates 6 years later, given the current efforts of all branches of the federal US government to roll back civil rights and DEI practices, criminalize protests, stop investments in renewables, and pour taxpayer money into fossil fuel extraction. And we have aspirations in this production, which might be a kind of segue into introducing our guests tonight. Aspirations about how artists can intervene or engage in this current situation. I'm drawing on the work of environmental activist and scholar of Buddhism, general systems theory, and deep ecology, Joanna Macy, who passed away last July. And Joanna Macy argued that systemic change in response to our climate emergency will happen in three ways: direct action to prevent further damage to the biosphere, experimentation with new ways of organizing to sustain life, and sparking a global shift of consciousness based on values of connection, empathy, and community. And it's our hope that Now is Still Here can help in some small but very vital ways to facilitate conversations, shift the dominant stories, and bring people together across their different experiences and interests through the concrete sensory experiences of the garden, of the ecosystem, of which we human animals are a part, and in which we are performing our show. So last note, before I introduce our guest speaker tonight, this conversation with Chantal Bilodeau is made possible by a public humanities community engagement grant from Brandeis University, particularly the Mandel Center for the Humanities at Brandeis University. Okay, it's now my pleasure to make some introductions. Um, First, I'll just show you the members of the Now Is Still Here company, and I'm very pleased to say that we'll be hearing from a number of these actors who will be reading a few pieces for us tonight. But I'm also inviting all of the other members of the company, including our stage manager, our movement director, all of whom are here, along with the ensemble, to please participate in this conversation. Okay, let me introduce our guest speaker now tonight. Chantal Bilodeau is a playwright and translator whose work focuses on the intersection of storytelling and the climate crisis. She is the founding artistic director of the Arts and Climate Initiative, where she has spearheaded programs for nearly 2 decades, getting communities in the US and abroad to engage in climate conversation through live events, talks, publications, workshops, artist convenings, an award-winning distributed theater festival in which we are taking part this spring. Chantal's playwriting awards include the Woodward International Playwriting Prize, as well as first prize in the Earth Matters on Stage Ecodrama Festival and first prize in the Uprising National Playwriting Competition. Her plays have been shown in a dozen countries and translated into Greek, Italian, Norwegian, and Portuguese. In 2019, she was named one of the 8 trailblazers who are changing the climate conversation by Audubon magazine. And Chantal's ongoing project is a series of 8 plays called The Arctic Cycle that looks at the social and environmental changes facing the 8 Arctic states. So I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and ask everyone to please welcome Chantal. And I'm going to spotlight Chantal and invite Chantal to please tell us a little bit about climate change theater action and about the Climate and Arts Initiative. And I think you have a presentation for us. So thank you very much for
Yes.
being here, Chantal.
Thank you, Tom, for inviting me, and thank you, everyone, for being here. It's so great to hear how you're thinking about the production, sort of the thinking and the inspiration and what you hope to accomplish. I hope it's such a great way to contextualize what you're doing, and I wish we always did that in the theater. Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen now. Uh, okay. So I am, as Tom said, I am the artistic director of the Arts and Climate Initiative, which is based in New York City. And I am originally from Montreal. I lived in the US for almost 30 years and just came back to Canada last summer. So I'm now based in Victoria in British Columbia on the West Coast. Um, the Arts and Climate Initiative has been in operation since 2008, and it uses storytelling and live performance to foster dialogue about our global climate crisis, create an empowering vision of the future, and inspire people to take action. So, when I started as a playwright, I did like every other playwright, I kind of jumped around between different topics that interested me, and then eventually I landed on the climate crisis, and since then I've made that the focus of my work. What the Arts and Climate Initiative does, we do online events, again, primarily in New York City. These include I'm sorry, live events and online events. Live events include performances, usually they're one-off performances, and panel conversations. What you see here is a panel that took place I believe it was in 2019, and it was a panel of climate women, women climate leaders that included journalists, activists, the director of the Climate Museum, who is the person holding the microphone, and a climate scientist on the far right, who is Kate Marvel, who recently published a book about, now I'm going to forget the title, but it's all about climate emotion, human nature, I believe. Very great book. Um, Also, in terms of online events in 2021, we hosted a 7-part series called Artists Envisioning a Green New Deal. And this was connected to the climate change theater action theme of that year, which I'll say a little bit more later. And then, of course, we do the Climate Change Theater Action Festival. Another thing we used to do annually, we've lapsed for about 2 years now because of changes, is the Arts and Climate Incubator. And this one, on this photo, this one we took place in Alaska. We bring together essentially it's whoever is interested, but I say artists, scientists, students, educators, anyone who's already engaging with the intersection of arts and climate, or who and wants to increase that engagement, or anyone who's interested in that intersection. So it's usually 15 to 20 participants, and we have a series of experts who come and talk to us, and then we have conversations between us, creative activities, and obviously we spend some time outside to try to bring the inside and the outside together. So in everything I've said so far, you probably heard that we're very much future oriented. So what can we create? How can we change our values? How can we address the climate crisis? So the image you see on the screen is just an example of what the focus of mainstream media is. This is a few years old. And it's always sort of natural disasters, policy failures. It's essentially everything that's going wrong. And for sure, there's a lot that's happening with the climate crisis. But unless you really know where to look and you're really paying attention, we're only hearing half of the story, and that's the half that is the bad news. We're not hearing about what's being done that is actually successful, that is inspiring, and that is working. So at the Arts and Climate Initiative and with Climate Change Theater Action, we're committed to telling this other half of the story. Not to gloss over, again, not to gloss over what is going wrong, because it's important that we know and that we engage with that, but that so we also know what is being done, so we don't feel like, I'm the only one who cares, I'm the only one who's trying. There's a lot of people who are trying and who are doing things, and when you start looking at the aggregate, it you can draw, at least I draw a lot of inspiration from that. Now, the result of these headlines is the rise of climate anxiety around the world. So there's a few countries listed in these graphs. If you look at the graph on the left at the top line, which says all countries, that's the answer to how worried are you about climate change. And you can see it's almost 60% of respondents who say they're very or extremely likely. And then the graph on the right, climate change negatively affects my daily life, and something that is I can't read right now because it's behind something else on my screen, functioning probably. Again, the top line, all countries, it's nearly 50% of people. So people are very affected, not, and that's to be expected because what's going on is really serious. But we all need sort of outlets to deal with those feelings. And we need to know how we can take action to make things better. So Climate Change Theatre Action, which is the festival that Tom and the whole company is participating in, takes place every other year. Well, until now, it launched in 2015, and it has been taking place every other year. We're going to change the format slightly. The last CCTA, I refer to it as CCTA, was in 2015. And I think I'm going to go to the next slide. Yeah. So in 2015, when we launched it, it was because the US Paris Climate Conference was coming up, and we felt like in the theater there wasn't much awareness about this, and this was a way to help people pay attention to it. So it started as four artists, me and three other women who launched the initiative in 2015, and then the three other women have moved on. And since then, it's become a collaboration between the Arts and Climate Initiative, our organization, and the Center for Sustainable Practice in the Arts, which is based in Toronto. And how it works, we every other year we would commission 50 plays by 50 playwrights from around the world. And then these plays would be made available to anyone who wanted to organize an event in their community using one or several of the plays from these collections. So over the years, we've had, we now have over 250 plays. I think it's about 275 that have been written. There have been, actually, I have more numbers on the next slide. But one thing I wanted to say is that we also ask, as part of the event that people organize, if they can include an action. And an action is anything that brings people together or encourage them to be a little bit more active in relation to the climate. And we don't specify what that is because it has to make sense to, each community. And it could be different for everybody. It could be big or small. It doesn't matter. Also, the productions can be big or small. We've had people reading plays to each other in a backyard, and we've had, fully produced main stage productions at universities and in theaters. So the main point is that it be as accessible as possible so a lot of people can participate. Our impact since 2015, we've presented nearly 600 events in 30 countries. And when I say we, it's not me, because it's all the wonderful people who decide to participate. 10,000 artists and students have been involved. Those are the people who are directly involved in creating the event. We've reached 6,000 audience members, and the actions, what I was just describing, some of the actions that have been included are tree planting initiatives, river cleanups, donating food to food banks, marching to demand better climate policies, writing to government representatives, and more and more and more. Oops. Did I miss something? Okay. Oh no, it's going to keep doing that. Okay. So just to give you some examples of people who have participated in the past, I skipped one. Yeah. In 2017, Massey University in Wellington, they had people dressed as penguins, as you can see, and they marched they called it a reverse climate march because they marched, instead of marching to Parliament, they marched from Parliament to the university to demand better climate policies. And the description of their event was, we bring you provocative and entertaining short plays and creative writing from New Zealand and the world to help connect you with creative thinking, great theater, and realistic ideas about how to take achievable climate action and make a personal difference. I love this picture. Now, I'm sorry for I don't know why that's happening. Native Earth in 2019, that's a company based in Toronto, and it's an Indigenous company, theater company. They performed 4 of the short plays that were in our collection that year that were written by Indigenous people based in Canada. So they said they did readings, but this looks like pretty embodied to me. And that year, our theme that we had given playwrights was to give center stage to unsung climate warriors and climate heroes. So again, very forward focus. In 2021, so completely different context. This was at the University of Colorado. They selected a number of short plays and presented them on their main stage. Um, and that year, the theme, because I forgot to say, but every year we give a theme to the playwrights to help them focus a little bit their writing. So it was envisioning a global Green New Deal, um, and which is the Green New Deal is very much US based, but a lot of countries and regions have an equivalent to that. Sometimes they call it Green New Deal or Green Deal, or there's a variation on how it's called, but it's a similar policy document. In 2023, um, our theme was All Good Things Must Begin, which was taken from a journal entry of science fiction writer Octavia Butler. And the event you see here, it was organized by Giovanni Morasuti, who is an actor based in Italy. This event was in Venice, and it was a series of things. Sustainable maritime mobility transport on electric boats, art exhibitions, music performances, and interventions combining digital art and science. In this photo, it was a collaboration with the group Extinction Rebellion. So those are the people who are wearing the white robes and holding the Extinction Rebellion flag. And I think they had a reading of a couple of plays on that beach. And then they took a boat and they went somewhere else. Or they took a boat and came to that beach. I can't remember which way it was. And then finally, last year in 2025, Michigan State University, um, just like you're doing, Tom, they had events outside. It was at an ecological, they had two events. One, well, it's the same event, but one was presented at an ecological research center, which I think is on campus, and the other one was at the local botanical center. And the theme for that year was The Time Is Now, which we kind of alternate between more poetic themes and more political one. And The Time Is Now was certainly more political, and we encouraged the writers to take that as broadly as they could. It could be an ultimatum. It could be the promise of a new beginning. It could be something that reminds you to stay connected to the present moment. It was pretty wide open. Once the festival are over, we publish the plays in anthologies so they can continue to circulate, so people can read them, study them, perform them. So the first year, the 2025, we didn't publish. It was really a pilot year, so we didn't know what we were doing yet. But we've published every year since. And then the last one, the 10 plays, was because in 2025, we commissioned only 10 new plays and we used 40 of our greatest hits. So these 40 of the greatest hits are already published in the new anthology, in the old anthologies. And here are some comments that we've heard after people do their event. We ask them for feedback. And so here are some of the things that we've heard. It was an impactful way of starting a conversation about climate change and environmental justice. It was exciting to bring together scientists and artists. That's something that happens a lot, specifically in universities, where these departments or schools don't often talk to each other. And this event gives them I guess, a good reason to collaborate. It was a successful intergenerational event. Using theater as a tool to communicate climate change was really powerful and gentle at the same time. And I felt hopeful today. This last one was from a scientist. I forget where he was, but he felt like the play the plays that he had watched had done a lot of the work that he usually takes a whole term to accomplish with his classes. So, what are the benefits of a festival like that? We can create a positive vision of the future. So there is a chance to rehearse things that we want to see happen. There's also a chance to create this positive vision just in a way, like within the production itself, just in a way that people deal with each other and approach the material. It emphasizes community building and collaboration. A lot of the events are, I would say, 90%, maybe even 95% are created outside of big established institutions. And so it's a lot more about building community, people who are, I guess, closer to their communities and have a chance to create collaborations or even continue to collaborate after the event is over. It can uplift marginalized voices. We really make a point of having a diverse representation when we create the collection of 50 plays. It provides an outlet for difficult feelings. There's not a lot of places, I feel, there's a lot of spaces in society in general where we can talk about climate in a way that is not either political or scientific or activist, like just saying how difficult it is to deal with these issues and our own feelings. I feel like when we engage with personal stories, it's a bit of an invitation to access our own feelings and share them. It makes the climate crisis part of the culture. It makes it something we talk about. There is I hope I'm not going over time. I'm almost done. There is a study that has been done by Yale, where I think it's a few years old. I'm not sure if they've updated it, but where they ask how often people talk to the climate crisis with their friends and family. And the number was astonishingly low. So we engage with it, we read the headlines, but we just don't talk to it with people who are close to us. And finally, it empowers people to make change. So, of course, the more you talk about something, the more you have a sense of how you can engage with it. The more you're empowered to make change. And so, if you want to know more, here's where you can find us: artsandclimateinitiative.org. That's our website. Climate Change Theater Action has its own website, and you can see all of the playwrights who have participated in all of the events that have been that have happened over the last 10 years. We're on Facebook and Instagram, and you can, if you want to reach out to me, I'm at Chantal at artsandclimate.org. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chantal. That was wonderful. I really appreciate that, and a lot of themes that I hope we'll pick up on in our conversation today as well. And I should say for folks who are here that our particular production of Climate Change Theater Action was originally scheduled for September of last year, so was going to be part of the Time Is Now theme, which is why we have the title Now Is Still Here to emphasize that we can come together here and now in a space and have these conversations, but also navigate through climate emotions in the way that Chantal, you've described. Due to some illnesses and injuries and other things, we postponed the production to May, and thank you, Chantal, for giving us permission to do so. Again, a reminder that please feel free to jump into the conversation to everyone who's here or to post questions in the Q&A. But maybe I will start us off by picking up on some of the issues you presented on. And the one that I thought I would start with is climate emotions, because you were just speaking about that, Chantal. Um, any playwright thinking about how to do a short piece about the climate and biodiversity crisis has to choose which climate emotions to dramatize. In our production, we've divided the production into two halves. Act one we're thinking we're describing as the present informed by decisions that have been made in the past. And so it's the present moment of our climate emotions of anger, rage, grief, loss, but above all, the experience of disconnection uh, between human animals, but also between human animals and other beings, living beings in our ecosystem. And we end with a piece called Gaia by Jessica Huang, which aims to sort of pull us through these emotions out into the possibility of imagining a future. And then Act Two, we're thinking of it as the future that could be informed by our present day decisions. And we offer various scenarios for audience members to choose from. And as you say, we get to rehearse that in our bodies. But speaking, as we think about climate emotions, I'm wondering what climate emotions you, Chantal, as a playwright, as a thinker, are experiencing most urgently right now. And if you like, maybe which emotions you think we need most urgently to be bringing to the stage right now, and also maybe connect this to how you see the themes of CCTA changing over the years, if you would like to do that.
Yeah, my climate emotions are always, there's never just one, it's always a bunch of them at the same time. And then, on a day-to-day one, maybe one rises above the other. But it is a mix of grief, anger, every once in a while I dip into despair, certainly a lot of determination, a sense of purpose, and a sense of definitely wanting to connect with everyone else who is doing good work and do my part. Um, you've noticed I didn't say hope, and I will tell you why. It's not because I feel like everything is doomed, but um, when I so I've been doing this work for almost 20 years, and when I when I started, the mission of 350.org was, and lots of activists, was we need to stay below 1.5 degrees of warming. And I sort of organized my thinking and my career around that. And just before the pandemic, I think, or maybe it was during the pandemic, when it became clear that that wasn't going to happen, I was a little lost for about a year, trying to figure out, well, what is it that I'm doing if it's not that? And then I was able to rise above that when I decided to let go of the outcome. Like, I'm not going to live to see the outcome. None of us will. It's too big and too long. And so the important part is to do the work, um, and to do what we can now. And the way I relate this to hope is that for me, hope was connected to a specific outcome. I need to accomplish this. So, not to say that I don't feel uh, up, maybe optimistic about what we can do, but I just had to disengage from like wanting something really specific to happen because I don't have control over that. Um, And then in terms of what I do as a playwright, I cannot spend however long it takes to research a play and write it in a hugely negative space because I'm not going to be able to do it. And so I try to engage, certainly with emotions that are difficult. I think I write a lot about grief, but I also try to see what's on the other side of that and how we can use that as a way to propel us forward. And then how that relates to climate change theater action is, when we did the first iteration in 2015, it was just an idea and we did it very quickly. I think we had the idea in June, and by October, the whole thing was in place. And we just asked people we knew, would you be willing to contribute to, 3 to 5 minute plays? That was the extent of the ask. And then we realized that and this is true, still true to this day, the first place that artists will go, and it's true in the theater, in literature, in film, is the apocalypse. So we have a hard time imagining something other than the end of the world. And unfortunately, we've been hearing about the apocalypse for so long that we're kind of a little numb to it. And, very few people will want to go to the theater to hear about the end of the world once again. And so I've been trying to direct the thinking in a different direction without being prescriptive. So I've named it a little bit as I was presenting some of the themes, but I can tell you again. In 2015, it was "Where's the Hope?" Uh, 2019, "Lighting the Way" was about giving center stage to the people we don't hear about who are, yes, thank you, Tom, who are doing amazing work. 2021 was envisioning a global Green New Deal. So this was more about policy, like, again, what is being done to make a change. 2023, all good things must begin. And then 2025, the time is now. So, and I always give the playwrights a little bit of a blurb to try to say, gently say, like, go towards the positive. And we still there are playwrights who can't, and that's okay. But then we have a mix as opposed to having, the majority of plays dealing with the apocalypse or dystopian world. Oh, you're muted, Tom.
Thank you, Chantal, and thank you for that. Could I invite members of the audience and also members of the ensemble, if you would like to share any of the climate emotions that feel most urgent to you right now, just to name them, put them into the space if you'd like to, and you can just unmute yourself and shout it out if you would like to.
Um, I definitely resonate with Chantal. Also, hi, I'm Maggie. I'm the stage manager on this
Oh, thank
project.
you,
It's
Maggie.
been it's been a ton of fun to work on, but I really appreciate the way you kind of decoupled hope for immediate things with general optimism because and Tom and I have discussed this, I do feel optimistic about things. I believe in people, and I really do reject the idea of an apocalypse, even though it is something so prevalent in fiction. But I also I'm not blind. I also know that there are things that we really need to change, and there's a lot of uh, things that are actively in the way of that. So I think optimism is something that you do through sometimes gritted teeth and, with everything you've got. And I think that's kind of the emotion I feel around this in the space.
Yeah,
Mm.
thank you.
My colleague Sabina has put in the chat um, uh, some of the newer data about how many people talk about climate change with their family or friends. 65% still rarely or never talk about the climate with their family and friends. And I noticed in the chart you shared with us, Chantal, that the United Kingdom and the United States are toward the bottom of the people who either feel anxiety about it or feel that they've directly experienced the climate crisis. And we are, I think, still very far behind on getting a conversation growing. And it seems to me that one of the things that one of the reasons I became interested in doing climate change theater was in working with some of our city and municipal councils in giving feedback on their climate plans. The question that always came to mind was what do you do about the gap between developing the plan and getting people to talk about it and to learn to feel comfortable with it and to, as you said, to rehearse in your bodies the possibilities that they can enact change. And it seemed to me that that's where artists can really come in and support creating those conversations and creating hope is not the word I would use, but creating excitement about the
Yeah.
possibilities that are still here for us. So I'm hoping that we as artists can do some of that. Of course, I do have one personal goal, which is every, tenth or fraction of a degree of warming that we can prevent will keep, millions of people from being displaced from the regions of the earth where they can thrive as populations of people. So we still want to, I still want to work to that. Uh, uh, and again, I'll just invite anyone else who wants to name a climate emotion, or Sabina, if you want to say anything about what you just posted in the chat, please join us. Please jump in.
Because I just talked about the Yale survey yesterday at a talk, and that number just blows me away that 81% of Americans say they never or rarely hear about climate in the media. And that is just, if you want hope or activism, like there you go. That's on us,
Mhm.
right? Like I think we're too quiet. We're too quiet. We're allowing the frustration to take over, and we're leaving the field to the idiots. And I think we just need to be more present, louder, more garish, more funny, more everything.
Spoken
I'm
by
the,
an activist renowned for a polar bear suit, bringing a polar bear suit to many, many events in town in Massachusetts. But Chantal, I think you were going to say something.
oh, I was gonna say I've become really interested in joy,
Mhm.
as a lot of revolutions have joy as the center of their as a center principle, I guess. And I'm trying to think, yeah, how we can bring more joy to the climate revolution, because that's a way to get people involved.
I agree. It's actually one of the things that I'm hoping we can achieve with our production of Now Is Still Here is that um, in terms of we have some direct actions that people can take in the production, but beyond that, uh, just the joy of being together in a garden, sharing the space of a garden seems so important to us, and to grow our capacity to respond centrally, through all of our senses to our ecosystems seems so crucial to us. Paola, were you wanting to jump in?
Uh, sure, I'll
And
jump
please
in.
introduce yourself, Paola.
Hi, my name is Paola Ferrer, and I am part of the cast that's going to be performing this beautiful compendium of pieces in the garden in Somerville. Looking forward to it. I want to just kind of like piggyback on the notion of joy. And about how that emotion can certainly coexist in this space of like climate emergency. I've shared with Tom and with my colleagues. I grew up in Puerto Rico, so the issue of climate, has never really been or climate the climate crisis has never been really abstract. That there are actually very vivid memories of very catastrophic climate events that leave behind, a great sense of fear, like this paralyzing sense of dread, and this very raw reminder of our vulnerability. But I can't help but think about my experiences in the context also of what happens right in the aftermath of those events, that there is this real profound sense of beauty about how the community binds together to rebuild and to heal, how there's this incredible capacity of the people and the natural landscape too to restore themselves, that there's this sense of wonder that can be shared there. So it gives me this sense of like there's this proof that even in our deepest fear, there is this unyielding capacity for restoration and renewal. So I think that there is certainly room for those emotions, both the cataclysmic sense of dread and the incredible sense of joy and community to exist in this space.
Mm.
That's lovely. The studies show that one of the strongest indicators of our capacity to survive a climate crisis or any so-called natural disaster is knowing your neighbors. So creating a space where we could just know our neighbors is really powerful. This might actually be a really good time to invite Paola, who's just spoken, and another one of our actors, Jacqueline, to perform a piece by Chantal Bilodeau called Mother. In our production now is still here. We've divided this piece among three figures that we're calling the witnesses. One is a witness of the earth elements. The second is a witness of the water elements. And the third is a witness of the sky or wind or air elements. And so we divided this piece among three. Our third witness couldn't be here tonight. So Chantal has really delightfully agreed to read the third section. But Jacqueline, since we haven't introduced you yet, could you please introduce yourself and then I'll spotlight all of you and we can do a reading of Mother.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jacqueline Goveas. Very glad to be here.
Great. Let me go ahead and see if I can spotlight you, and then we will um, begin our reading. So there we go. Thanks to the three of you and Jacqueline, whenever I should say for the audience that we're a little over halfway through our rehearsal process. So this is a preview of our show.
Look at me. Why won't you look at me? You were such a surprise. No one was waiting for you. No one was expecting you. The idea of you hadn't even crossed my mind. You just showed up out of nowhere, a fully formed creature, a little beast with its own will ready to take the world by storm. I should have seen it coming, of course. I should have realized when you crawled out of the ocean that something was happening, that something had been set in motion. But the truth is, it was all random. A little mutation here, a little mutation there, and then boom, there you were, with your big head and your big brain, so proud of yourself for standing on your own 2 feet. And that's the beauty of it. That's the real miracle. Somehow, in the space of a geological flicker, chaos organized itself into you. Why won't you look at me? Then one day it happened. One day you spread your wings and set out to make the world your own. And what a day that was! Drunk with your own power, you heard and saw and tasted. You experienced and learned, invented and discovered, organized and cataloged. It was so exhilarating. I watched you grow, innocent and carefree, incapable of even imagining that, well, maybe it wouldn't have made a difference. Look at me. Why won't you look at me?
Look at me. Why won't you look at me? We used to gaze into each other's eyes, remember? From dusk to dawn and dawn to dusk. I held you close and we lost ourselves into each other's mystery. That was before you started calling me mother, before there was anything to call mother. I was you and you were me. There was no distance to travel, no otherness to name. It was our own version of Eden, our own little paradise. You know, maybe the proverbial apple wasn't plucked from a tree. Maybe it was extracted from the ground. Look at me. I wish you would look at me, simply, without guilt or shame. I may be sick. I may be oozing thick black blood, but I'm not angry. I know you. For billions of years, I've carried you in my womb. You were made of me. You, my little piece of eternity, my little miracle. Look at me. Why won't you look at me?
I know you're not ill-intentioned. I know you're not oblivious. I know you're not mean. You care. You want the best. You love. Yes, you do. Maybe imperfectly, but you love. The past is behind us. Let it go. And the future is forever hidden in the double helix of a cell. But now is here. Now is us. Now is our time for forgiving what has been done, for rediscovering what has been lost, for healing what has been hurt. Now is our chance to bridge that distance again and reclaim the Eden that was before there was mother. Look at me, please. If I see myself in your eyes, I'll know that everything will be okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline and Paola, and thank you, Chantal. And I love how in this play you imagine a time before there was separation, and because it was before separation, it was before a mother, before a child. It was just a oneness that we've lost. I wanted to ask you, though, in addition, about that. This is a play, like many plays in the repertoire of CCTA, that takes what some people feel the risk of anthropomorphizing non-human beings, whether it's a supernatural being, Mother Earth, or Gaia, a physical entity, a material entity, a non-human living being. And I was wondering, how do you think about that? In many of your plays, you've also staged human actors playing polar bears and other animals and spirit animals. So, how do you think about the choices of using human actors to portray non-human beings, and why should we do that?
Yeah, so before I even started writing plays about the environment, I realized that in every one of my play, I would put a non-human character. One of them has a cat, one has an unborn child, one of them has an ancestor. And so once I figured out that I was always doing that, I kind of leaned into it. And in relation to the environment, I so I suppose there is a danger. I mean, first of all, I think we should draw a distinction between like Disney characters, which is really they're humans, but they're drawn as animals,
Mhm.
and something that's more along the line of animism, which is animals having their own spirit and their own agency. And so, because however we portray animal, it still comes from our own understanding, our own imagining of what that might be like. We're always going to be biased, but I think there is value in trying to understand the life of animals. There's value in uh, putting them on stage as part of life, as part of the world. So it's not just drama between humans, but there's actually a bigger context. Um, and there's value in giving them agency, recognizing that I was reading something recently, like one thing I wasn't even aware of is that a lot of animals have an aesthetic appreciation.
Mhm.
Like birds, where the male will, like a peacock, the male will display these beautiful feathers, and the only reason for the female to choose that one over that one is because of what it looks like. Um, and then there's, more talk about animals having consciousness, having communication, having very complex social systems. And I think we should lean into that and try to understand what that means, and try, like, we'll never get there, but it's the same. I think it's the same effort as when we put humans on stage who are not like us. Like, I'll never know what it is to be, this character in that situation, but the effort of trying to understand is worth it. And so I think doing that with animals, or even things that we can consider who are not alive, like landscapes or rocks, or I just think it's important to do that. And there's a long history in indigenous cultures of people considering all these other beings as being as important as us. Not
Mhm.
us being like, oh, the special humans and everybody else is underneath. So I think we, in the Western culture, we have some catching up to do.
Mm-hmm. And also the responsibility to give voice within our legal system and within the terms that our legal system recognizes to entities who don't have those rights of personhood, but could have them. We have some of our cast members here who play orcas, and we also have a cast member here who plays a bee. Orcas in Tyra Palmquist's Eat the Rich, and Mindy Dixteen's Starving to Death in Midtown Manhattan. And one of the things I love about Starving to Death in Midtown Manhattan is the bee comes out and says, I'm calling the bees my people because I have to use language that you understand. You have to catch up with us, just as you're saying, Chantal. So if any members of the ensemble would like to speak about what it feels like to play an animal, uh, please unmute yourself and join in, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Allie, and I play an orca, um, and in the play. And I think it's very interesting to kind of um, play an animal because I think we're learning all these different mannerisms about the animals as well, and like how those like mannerisms kind of play into the scene, and like it's been very interesting to kind of research the animal and then kind of see how that kind of is portrayed through the scene. Like, for example, the line of like wearing salmon as hats, like orcas, even orcas wearing salmon as hats, like these like little mannerisms that kind of come in. Um, and I find it really interesting to kind of take on that perspective, something that a lot of people don't really get to do. So it's really cool.
Orcas are matrilineal. Matrilineal,
Yes.
is that how you say it? Yeah. And
Mhm.
I saw my first one recently, now that I live on the West Coast. Yeah.
Sweet, sweet.
Yeah. The fins, I mean, the fin was taller than me. I think it was like 3 meters,
Mm,
which is 9 feet high. It's kind of
mm,
amazing.
mm. Carolina will have to expand you even more as you play Kai, the matriarch. Um, if anyone else wants to jump in, please do.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna I'm Ari. Can people hear me okay?
Yes, Ari, please introduce
Yeah.
yourself. Yes.
Yeah, I'm Ari Zimmet. I use they them pronouns. I'm from Brookline, Massachusetts. I also have really the joy, pleasure of playing an orca. And I think, yeah, one thing I wanted to add, I totally agree with what Ali was saying, and also like orcas are playful, like even in the midst of um their changing environment. And I think it's interesting to play these characters where like like guilt doesn't really come into the equation at all. Like there's a lot of playfulness and like rebellious spirit. I think there's also sometimes like annoyance. Like we have moments where we're watching like yachts and cruise ships go by, and it's fun to like imagine being an annoyed animal, uh, and then like dipping back into playfulness and kind of swimming around the issue, uh, or like through it, thinking through it. It's a lot of fun.
And the orca that Ali plays, Steve, is influenced by Jean-Jacques Rousseau's idea of eating the rich and is leading a campaign to eat the rich, which we will play off of to engage audience members in participating in the make polluters pay resolutions that are happening across the United States as well. Since Ari just spoke, this would actually maybe be a good time to bring Ari and another cast member, Ariana, into into the room to perform a piece called "Cassandra Drowning" by Nathan Joe, which is a wonderful example of how a playwright can draw on previously existing. I'm trying to find you, Ari. Oh, you have to, Ari, do you have your camera on, please? You do? Okay. And I can add you. There you go. Wonderful. Uh, Cassandra Drowning draws both on the myth of Cassandra, but also on Henrik Ibsen's The Doll's House with a young woman who makes a decision to leave a husband who has not been listening to her, and does all of this within 5 minutes. So it's a wonderful short play. And I'd like to invite Ariana and Ari to go ahead and read it for us whenever you're ready.
Ready, Ariana? Woke up and you were gone.
Couldn't sleep.
Same dreams.
Uh-huh.
Have you been taking your medications?
They make me sweaty and groggy.
You're wet.
There's a flood.
That's just a little leak.
Didn't know what to do. Didn't want to wake you. Tried reading. Tried going online, but the dripping is so loud.
Dry yourself up and come to bed. We can talk about it tomorrow when you're calm.
I am calm. Talk tomorrow and I've forgotten, you mean?
Forgotten? Forgotten what?
This clarity.
I'm not sure this is clarity. This is insanity. You'll feel better when you've had some sleep.
Tomorrow, I will wake up and you will make me pancakes because you always make me pancakes when I'm anxious. And their sweetness, their flowery sweetness will fill my mouth. And you will make me take that silly little pill. And that fog, that sweet, sugary fog, will descend once again. And I will say, yes, you're right. I'm overreacting. And you will go to work and the clock will tick and the day will pass and I will turn on the TV and all will seem all right again. It always does. For a little while.
I can't talk to you when you get like this. When you have these mood swings, when you're manic, when you're depressed, frankly, it's terrifying.
Of course it's terrifying. It should be. The world is ending and no one is grieving.
The world is fine. We are fine. Okay? I'm right here. Look. See? See? It's just water. Look, it's all under control. The world is not going to end.
I have these visions.
Okay. Okay. What do you see? What are your visions telling you?
Sometimes I see floods so great we're all washed away. Sometimes I see the sun so hot we simply dry up. Sometimes I see the world crack open and swallow us whole. Sometimes all these things happen at once, tectonic shifts and people burning while drowning.
And that's not insanity. That's not depression, because I have visions too. You don't want to know what I see?
What do you see?
Us together here. We've paid off this house and you have this little bump right there. Yeah. And you're smiling. And yeah, we eat pancakes. And yes, we go to the park and the beach because those are nice things. We do nice things because we deserve nice things. That doesn't make us criminals. That doesn't make us monsters. To be happy, to choose to be happy. Wouldn't you like that? Isn't that what you want?
Yes, of course.
Yes, good. That's all that matters. Happy.
But none of that is real. Whenever I used to get sad, whenever I used to get terribly sad, I was consoled by the fact that eventually, tomorrow, the sun would rise. Eventually, tomorrow, the sun would kiss my face, that I could go to the beach and the crashing of the waves would fill my ears, that I could kneel in the dirt and plant something, make something grow, nurture something that would last hundreds and thousands of years. But instead, tomorrow, the sun might kill me. The ocean might kill me, not because they've been cruel, but because we've been cruel.
Where are you going?
I'm not sure. Save the world. That vision of us lying in bed together, it just suddenly shattered.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh, okay? Let's forget this. And if tomorrow you still feel the same way,
I'm
then
afraid that if I don't go, if I stay, I won't go.
then never go.
The world takes the shape that we want it to take, but you want it to stay the same. Can't you see that we can change it?
Okay, then let's change it. What do you want? I I'll stop driving the car. Is that what you want? I'll start riding a bicycle. I promise to recycle properly. I'll compost. I'll buy less new shirts. I'll stop eating red meat. I'll eat less. I could stop completely. If you want, we could plant some trees.
It's too late. It's not enough. But you could come.
I have work tomorrow. I have a meeting with a new client. If your premonition is true, if you're right and the world is really going to end, then what can you really do about it?
Anything.
Thank you, Ari and Ariana. That was Nathan Joe's Cassandra Drowning. It's wonderful how, with all the fine actors in our ensemble, you could take these plays and perform them on Zoom, and they're amazing. You know, so thank you for that. Before I ask any final questions for Chantal, let me just open it up to the room to see if other people have questions that you would like to ask Chantal or any members of our ensemble.
Can I say
And
thank you for performing that play? I've only ever read it. I've never seen it performed. And it's, I mean, I know, we know, right? Theater, but yeah, it's such an amazing play. Thank you.
well, you have to come to Massachusetts, Chantal.
Yeah, really. Also,
And
Nathan, who is from Australia, I know, I forget which state, but he's in the US doing a master's degree at one of the universities in the US.
oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's one of the reasons I chose th this play for and invited Ariana and Ari to perform it is because I'm thinking about, how do you present the scale of climate change? As you said earlier in your in your presentation, in your talk, Chantal, we can't grasp all of climate change. It's time scale. We talk about the time is here and now, and of course it is. This is when we have to act, but the time of climate change exceeds our capacity to grasp it, as does the geography, the space of climate change. So one has to find a way into this huge story. So I thought I would ask you to, how do you think about that as a playwright? Where do you start a play to start to tell a story about something this large?
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing about the play. As I was listening to it, it made me think of, you might have heard it, the saying, we can imagine the end of the world, but we can't imagine the end of capitalism. So, yeah, the husband, like he says, yeah, I'm going to do all these things, but he can't think outside of the system, which is, I think,
Right.
what the
Right.
woman is trying to do. So that came very vividly to me as I was listening.
So true.
Um, so I'm focused on this project that it's about the Arctic countries. And this started, I thought I was going to write one play about the Canadian Arctic. And then when I started doing that, I wanted to continue and I wanted this body of work to be cohesive somehow. So I decided I was going to write one play for each country in the Arctic. And that gave me a sort of container. Otherwise, yeah, I think maybe I wouldn't know where to start. But now I'm always like, okay, this country is done. Now I have, four more to choose from. Pick one and figure out what the issues are in that country, and then how I can best dramatize that. Um, I try to. One thing I realized early when I went to Nunavut to research the play that's set in the Canadian Arctic is that I had to sort of transcend my training as a playwright because I was very much trained on the Aristotle model where, you have one character go through a bunch of obstacles, there's a catharsis at the end, and then, and it's too narrow. It's like showing one point of view as if that's the way in. And I think what's more important about the climate crisis is to understand how different things fit together. And so all of my plays are kind of formally, uh, they're formal research at the same time as I'm researching the story. I'm trying to figure out like how do we get out of this system that we're used to, and how do we do it in our thinking, but how do we do it in our stories too? Like, is there a better way to structure a story that helps us think differently about who we are? So yeah, that's been a little bit my focus.
I think you said in one of in your final essay for the series from the digital magazine HowlRound Theater Comments that you edited on theater in the age of climate change, your final essay, Passing the Baton. One of the things you said was you fell out of love with Aristotle and Aristotelian theater. I don't know if you want to say more about that now, but I'm wondering if it has to do with what you're saying here about how to invite in multiple perspectives and shift the story.
Yeah, it's completely connected. Um, it was about yeah, trying to think about stories differently. The title of not the final essay, but an earlier essay I wrote was breaking up with why I broke up with Aristotle, I think,
Mm.
or why I'm breaking up with Aristotle. And it was exactly about this. It was like, if I privilege one point of view, I'm doing a disservice to that community. This was in the Canadian Arctic because what's important is how the different perspectives fit together, and that was when I like, okay, Aristotle, you're great, but you're not working for me at the moment, so I need to think about something else.
Aristotle gave us the Western classical system of a beginning, a middle, end, a single through line, and usually classically a single protagonist, maybe two or three who are engaged in some kind of conflict or crisis that has to be worked through. Uh, Yes, I love how not only each play brings in a new perspective, but being able, as a director, as a production team, to assemble 13 stories together in one evening really allows us to hear from these variety of perspectives, and just to stage the on the sort of meta level of the experience, the multiplicity of voices in this space together is really a gift, and I hope it's a gift that we'll give the audience. The other thing that came to mind is as you were speaking before was about how theater allows us to rehearse our possible futures in our bodies. It seems to me, and many climate ethicists have raised this question that the really key, one of the real key questions for us at the moment is who do we need to become as human beings to be worthy of the role we've been given of stewarding this planet. So this is a question not only for Chantal, but for everyone in this room. Many of the plays that we're performing and now is still here ask us this question: how do we get there? Who do we need to become? So I thought I would just open this up, Chantal, if you'd like to share your thoughts about who do you think we need to become as the human species. But then please, everyone in the room, what are your ideas? And then we'll bring in a question from Carolina after that.
I think Paola had a wonderful example of who we need to become when she talked about the communities in Puerto Rico who come together after disaster. It does, in New York City, we saw that after 9/11. So it does happen, but can it happen without us having the disaster to prompt that, I think that's who we need to become.
To be capable of joy and creativity is a big step in that direction. Well, I'll let that question linger, and please, feel free to share your thoughts. But Carolina is a member of our ensemble who I mentioned before was performing The Bee in Starving to Death in Midtown Manhattan. Carolina, would you like to introduce yourself more and please share your question?
Yes, hi, I'm Carolina. I'm one of the actors in the production now is still here. I had a lot of questions, but I was trying to figure out like what the one question I wanted to ask. And one of the conversations we were having before, I was thinking about like the feelings that come up around this, and I was thinking a lot about access and education and uh, how I feel like education from an early stage is incredibly important. And I was thinking about how like different pieces of media or ways that can just plant a bit of inspiration and having access to these kinds of conversations are very important. And even with like the question that Tom posed now, like who we should be, I can imagine just like as kids growing up, um, I feel like as kids we kind of think, oh, to be of help, I have to be like a scientist or I have to be really good at math and something like that. And I remember just like watching the film Happy Feet and and like bawling as a child. And even just like an animated film like that giving me so much inspiration and hope and something where I thought, well, I don't have to be like great at balancing chemical equations or great at biology to be able to understand and care about what's going on. So I think the question that I have is um, I'm wondering if there are ways that through through theater as climate action, if there are ways to connect with people who are scientists or even like not even just scientists, but like anyone who can kind of like be in that space to have those conversations and ask those questions. Because, sometimes growing up as kids, maybe you're not in a space where those conversations are had in the classroom. Yeah, I don't know if I posed the question well, but
Yeah, I know there have been some groups who have presented their events in schools. I don't know of any sustained efforts, I guess, of people doing that, but you're right, like we need to help the young generation understand what their role is, how they can take part, and that there's more than, I mean, it's perfectly fine to be a scientist or an engineer, but if that's not your calling, there are other ways to get involved. I don't have high hopes for the education system in the US at the moment, but I don't think it's better in Canada either. I don't think there's a lot happening in the like before university in that sense. And I think when it does, it's individual teachers who take it upon themselves to do that education.
We're very privileged here in Somerville, Massachusetts, to have a school system that is requiring climate education and has active climate clubs among the middle and high school students who also
Oh, that's
participate with the
wonderful.
municipality. Yeah, so we need to take that idea, Carolina, and really spread it across wherever you live. I mean, I think that's one of the also the ideas of now is still here. Wherever you live, find the issue that matters to you and find find where you connect to that issue with some joy and creativity and then go with it and make that your life, make that the way you live. I mean to say, as we end up here, Chantal, I would like to ask what's next both for you. I know you've just started a PhD program at the University of Victoria in Canada. I'd like to wonder if you could tell us what's next for you, but also what's next for CCTA, as you say, it's taking some new shapes, some new forms.
Yeah, yes, I am at the University of Victoria. I'm in the English department, and I'm continuing what I've been doing, which is researching the intersection of storytelling and climate. So it's not like a new thing. I'm just doing it in a different way. And for climate change theater action, like any other arts organization, we have seen a significant decline in funding, and so we're not able to do it the way we used to, which was commissioning 50 playwrights every 2 years. And also, my time is, more limited now that I'm doing this PhD program. Excuse me. So what we're going to do is we're going to probably commission a smaller number of new plays like we did this past year, maybe 10. And the festival, instead of having the festival condensed in the 12 weeks in the fall, we'll do it like we'll say to people, you have a year to, organize an
Mm.
event, which will be a bit more time intensive on my end, but it will give people also more flexibility about when to do events. So I'm hoping that I can organize this for 2027.
Fantastic. I can't wait to hear the updates then, both about your PhD work, your doctoral studies, and about CCTA. I'm actually going to try to bring everyone into the room now so that we can all thank you, Chantal, for being with us tonight and joining in this conversation. And
thank you.
thank you to all the company members who were here as well. I didn't get to introduce everyone, but thank you to those who read for us or performed for us today, and to everyone else for being here. We at the Growing Center, not only our producing now is still here, but we have some follow-up events that will be coming up. If I can just end by sharing my screen one more time. Uh, I won't even, well, here I can play from the current slide. Um, we have a series of climate convenings. We have a series of climate convenings coming up, which will allow anyone in the Somerville area or near the Somerville area to continue to engage in conversations such as this our next upcoming one in a series of four is on 18 June. It's called Can We Address the Climate Crisis Without Addressing Anti-Blackness? And then sort of really inspired by Hop Hopkins' work once again. And then we have a workshop inspired by or directly coming from the lineage of the work of Joanna Macy called A Council of All Beings, which will allow participants to use their imaginations to inhabit the point of view of a more than human being, just as we talked about with Chantal. And then the beings come together to discuss their lives and the state of the world from their perspectives, a way for us to, as Chantal was saying, to learn to think beyond our limited perspectives. So I'll continue to share that information with everyone. But for now, let me actually get out of this. But for now, let me thank Chantal again and all of you and wish you all a good night. Thank you.
Thank you, and good
Bye.
luck to all the actors and to Tom with the
Yeah.
production. I hope it goes really
Thank
well.
you, Chantal. And it's been such a pleasure to be able to connect with you again. And I hope we do this again soon in the future.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye bye. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.